I was nursing the worst hangover of my 38 years when I spotted her. Tour groups and hangovers don't mix, but rent in Indianapolis doesn't pay itself. My group of middle-aged tourists needed constant attention like needy puppies, and each question they asked drove the pounding in my skull up another notch. And to your right is the Soldiers and Sailors Monument, completed in 1901. My rehearsed spiel flowed automatically while my eyes fixed on a woman across the circle. She wasn't watching the monument like everyone else. Instead, she crouched near a neglected drain cover, camera angled to catch where rainwater created patterns against the metal. Her red hair caught the October sunlight, blazing like fire against the gray concrete of Monument Circle. "Miss Phillips, what's the significance of the limestone?" A tourist interrupted my staring. "The limestone? Right. It's locally quarried from southern Indiana," I managed, forcing my attention back to my group. But my eyes kept drifting. The photographer had moved on to capturing the play of light through a row of maple trees, their leaves just starting to turn amber. Her camera moved with confidence, like it was an extension of her body. As my group shuffled toward the next landmark, I noticed her following at a distance, not in a creepy way, more like we were traveling parallel paths. I wondered if she found my tour group visually interesting somehow, God knows why. 15 sunburned Midwesterners in sensible shoes weren't exactly Vogue material. "The Central Library, one of our city's architectural treasures," I announced, gesturing grandly despite my throbbing headache. The movement made me dizzy. I really shouldn't have tried to keep pace with Jenna at karaoke last night. Then it happened. I stepped back to let an elderly couple pass, unaware that red-haired camera lady had crept closer behind me. She was backing up, eye to viewfinder, trying to capture the full facade of the library. "Perfect angle, just one more step," I heard her murmur. The collision was spectacular. Her back slammed into mine, sending me stumbling forward directly into the library's decorative fountain. I hit the water with a magnificent splash, my professional blazer and slacks instantly soaked. My tour group gasped collectively. Sputtering, I rose from the knee-deep water like some vengeful water nymph. "What the hell?" I shouted, mascara undoubtedly streaming down my face. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." The photographer scrambled to the fountain's edge, her face a mask of horror. "I didn't see you. I was focused on not watching where you were going," I interrupted, wading toward the edge. Up close, I could see her eyes were a startling blue, the kind of blue that made you think of summer skies and swimming pools. Not that it mattered. She'd just ruined my day and possibly my phone. She reached out her hand. "Please, let me help. I'm Amelia Mitchell." I ignored her hand and climbed out myself, dignity in shreds as water poured from my clothes. My tour group watched with expressions ranging from shock to poorly concealed amusement. "Perfect. I'll pay for dry cleaning," she offered, digging through her backpack while keeping her expensive camera safely away from me and my dripping rage. "And lunch, dinner, whatever it takes." I opened my mouth to deliver a scathing response when something unexpected happened. A snort of laughter escaped me instead. The whole situation was so absurdly ridiculous, me standing there dripping, her panicked expression, my bewildered tour group, that something inside me just broke. The laugh bubbled up from somewhere beneath the hangover and the professional embarrassment. "You know what?" I said, surprising myself. "This might be the most interesting thing that's happened on this tour in years." Amelia's worried expression melted into relieved laughter. She had a nice laugh, warm and genuine. "So you're not going to murder me with your tour guide flag?" I squeezed water from my sleeve. "I'm reserving judgment. I'm Alicia Phillips, by the way, professional tour guide, and apparently now part-time fountain display." For a moment, our eyes locked, and something shifting and electric passed between us. My anger evaporated like the water droplets warming on my skin in the autumn sun. "Let me make this right," she said, and for some strange reason, I found myself believing she would. 3 days after the fountain fiasco, I pushed open the door to Indigo Flow Yoga Studio, my Tuesday ritual for the past 6 months. The warm air hit me, smelling of sandalwood and that particular scent of heated wood floors. Outside, October was putting on a show. Trees lining the streets were transforming into brilliant oranges and reds, but inside the studio was always the same peaceful sanctuary. I rolled out my mat in my usual spot near the back wall when the door chimed again. I glanced up automatically and froze. Red hair, blue eyes. Camera girl Amelia stood in the doorway, scanning the room like she was lost. She hadn't seen me yet. Maybe if I just stare intensely at my yoga mat, she'll... Alicia? Fountain lady? Damn it. I looked up to see Amelia approaching with a mix of surprise and amusement on her face. She wore tight black leggings and a loose gray tank top that showed off surprisingly toned shoulders. Not that I was noticing. Of all the yoga studios in all of Indianapolis, I said dryly. You're following me now? Purely coincidental stalking, she replied with a smile that was far too charming for my liking. The girl at my hotel recommended this place, said the Tuesday instructor was amazing. Before I could respond, Maya, our instructor, floated into the room with her usual serene presence. Good morning, beautiful souls, please find your spaces. Amelia glanced around at the rapidly filling studio. Mind if I... She gestured to the empty space beside me. I sighed dramatically but shifted my mat over. Try not to knock me into any hidden water features this time. Class began normally enough. Sun salutations, warrior poses, the usual flow. I tried to focus on my breath and form, but I was acutely aware of Amelia beside me. She moved with surprising grace for someone who'd barreled into me days before. Today we'll be working with partners, Maya announced, just as I was finding my zen. Connect with the person next to you. The universe has a sick sense of humor. Looks like we're partners, Amelia whispered, her eyes crinkling at the corners. Partner yoga turned out to be an exercise in exquisite torture. Maya demonstrated the first pose with her assistant, a seated back-to-back posture where you had to link arms and trust your partner's weight. You won't drop me, will you? I asked as we sat back-to-back, my skin hyper-aware of every point where we touched. Only if you deserve it, she murmured, and I could hear the smile in her voice. We moved through increasingly complicated poses. In one, I found myself balancing on my back with my feet supporting her hips as she flew above me, her arms outstretched. Our eyes met upside down, and she grinned. Now I have you at my mercy, she said. Don't get used to it, I replied, but couldn't help smiling back. The final pose required true trust, standing face to face, leaning back while holding each other's forearms, creating a counterbalance, where removing either person would cause both to fall. Ready? She asked softly. I nodded, taking her forearms. Her skin was warm, her grip strong. We leaned back slowly, finding the perfect point of tension. It felt like flying and falling at the same time. Our eyes locked, and for a moment, everything else in the studio disappeared. You're good at this, she said, her voice lower than before. Years of practice, I replied, trying to ignore the strange flutter in my chest. When class ended, I rolled up my mat quickly, suddenly needing fresh air. Amelia caught up to me outside. Hey, wait up! She jogged over, her cheeks flushed from class. That was fun. If you consider physical exertion fun, I replied, but without malice. Let me buy you coffee, she said. I still owe you for the fountain incident. I've already forgotten about it, I lied. Please? One coffee. Consider it my final apology. Her blue eyes were earnest, making it difficult to maintain my aloof facade. I checked my watch. My first tour wasn't until noon. Fine. One coffee, I conceded. But I take it very seriously, so don't mess this up too. Amelia's face lit up. I promise a splashless experience. 20 minutes later, we sat across from each other at Calvin Fletcher's, my favorite local coffee shop. I wrapped my hands around a perfect oat milk latte, while she sipped some concoction with too much whipped cream. So, I said, are you just visiting Indianapolis or... Here for a month, she replied, working on a photography project about overlooked America, finding the extraordinary in ordinary places. Like drain covers in Monument Circle? She laughed. Exactly. Most people never look down. I found myself wanting to know more, which was irritating. I didn't have time for distractions, especially not red-haired, blue-eyed ones who'd be gone in a month. What about you? She asked. Were you born to be a tour guide, or is there a tragic backstory? I took another sip of coffee. No tragedy. Art history major who needed a job. Turns out I'm good at walking backward and talking about buildings. I bet you're amazing at it. The way she said it, like she actually meant it, made me pause. I glanced at my watch, surprised to find I was enjoying myself. I should go. Tours to lead, tourists to educate. Amelia nodded, looking disappointed. Thanks for the yoga partnership. And the coffee company. I stood, gathering my bag. Try not to push anyone else into fountains today. No promises, she grinned. Then, hesitating, actually, Alicia, could I get your number? In case I need a local's perspective for my project? I surprised myself by taking her phone and entering my number. As I walked away, my phone buzzed with a text. Now you have mine too. For emergencies only. Like if you fall into another fountain. Despite myself, I smiled all the way to my tour. What began as one coffee turned into a week of text messages. Nothing serious, just photos Amelia took around the city with questions like, what's the story behind this weird statue? Or me sending her tips about hidden spots worth photographing. The locals call it the Stump. I texted about a peculiar concrete structure downtown. Legend claims it's haunted. Her reply came quickly. Haunted by bad urban planning? I found myself smiling at my phone more than I'd like to admit. After 10 years in Indianapolis giving tours to strangers, it was refreshing seeing my city through new eyes. On Friday afternoon, I was wrapping up an architectural tour when my phone buzzed. Dinner tonight? I found a place that serves something called a Hoosier tenderloin that's bigger than my head. Need expert guidance. I hesitated. Coffee after yoga was one thing. Dinner felt more intentional. But before I could overthink it, I texted back, 7 p.m. I'll send the address. Don't wear anything fancy. The working man's friend was exactly as I remembered, noisy, cramped, and serving the best damn tenderloin sandwiches in the state. When Amelia walked in wearing jeans and a simple green sweater that made her eyes look impossibly blue, I felt an unexpected flutter of nerves. This is definitely not in any tourist guide, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. That's the point. You wanted authentic Indianapolis. Our knees touched under the small table. Neither of us moved away. The waitress brought 2 beers I'd ordered, and Amelia raised hers. To fountain incidents and their unexpected consequences. I clinked my glass against hers. You're never going to let me forget that, are you? Not a chance. She took a sip, watching me over the rim of her glass. So Alicia Phillips, tour guide extraordinaire. Tell me something you don't tell the tourists. I considered this. I hate limestone. If I have to explain one more time why Indiana is famous for limestone, I might scream. She laughed. Fair enough. What else? Your turn. Tell me something real about Amelia Mitchell. Her smile faded slightly as she played with her napkin. Real, huh? Okay. I've been to 36 states and 17 countries, but I've never had a place I call home for more than 6 months. By choice or circumstance? Started as circumstance, became choice. She took another sip of beer. My last serious relationship ended because I wouldn't settle down in Boston. She wanted stability. I wanted freedom, I finished for her. Our eyes met with understanding that felt almost too intimate. What about you? She asked. Any disastrous relationships in your tour guide past? One major disaster. Catherine. We were together 3 years. She left for a job in Chicago, asked me to come. I stayed. Why? I shrugged. This is home. My life is here. So we're opposites, Amelia said thoughtfully. You can't imagine leaving, I can't imagine staying. Our food arrived. Enormous breaded tenderloins hanging comically off the edges of normal-sized buns. Amelia's eyes widened. This is architecturally impossible, she declared, pulling out her camera to document the absurdity. Conversation flowed easily after that. She told me about photographing polar bears in Manitoba, getting lost in Tokyo, and sleeping under the stars in New Mexico. I shared stories about the strangest tourists I'd encountered, and my secret dream of leading art history tours in Europe someday. Why don't you? She asked. Do the Europe thing? I hadn't told anyone about that dream in years. Responsibility, comfort, fear, take your pick. Fear of what? Failing, or worse, succeeding and finding out it wasn't what I wanted after all. She nodded slowly. I understand that better than you might think. When we finished eating, neither of us seemed ready for the night to end. We walked along the canal, the water reflecting the city lights. October air had turned chilly, and I hugged my jacket closer. Cold? Amelia asked, noticing my shiver. I'm fine, I lied. She stepped closer anyway, her arm brushing mine as we walked. You know what I've realized about you, Alicia Phillips? What's that? You're a much better tour guide off duty. And you're much better company when not shoving people into fountains. She laughed and impulsively caught my hand, squeezing it once before letting go. The brief contact sent warmth spreading up my arm. I leave in 3 weeks, she said suddenly, her voice quiet. I know. I don't usually, she hesitated, make connections in the places I visit. The implication hung in the air between us. This was something. Whatever it was something. Maybe Indianapolis has special powers, I said lightly, not ready to acknowledge the growing weight in my chest. She stopped walking, turning to face me. The moonlight caught in her red hair, making it look like burnished copper. Maybe it's not Indianapolis. We stood too close, the moment stretching between us like a taut string. Her eyes dropped to my lips, then back up. I felt myself leaning forward slightly, drawn by some invisible force. Then my phone rang, shattering the moment. It was my neighbor calling about a package delivery. By the time I hung up, whatever spell had been cast was broken. We walked back toward our cars, a careful foot of space between us now. Thanks for dinner, she said as we prepared to part ways. Thanks for seeing my city with fresh eyes. She hesitated, then smiled. Good night, Alicia. I watched her walk away, feeling like something significant had almost happened, and wondering if I was relieved or disappointed that it hadn't. Are you sure about this? Amelia tugged at the blindfold I'd insisted she wear. We stood on a nondescript street corner in Fletcher Place, the October wind whipping autumn leaves around our ankles. Stop fidgeting. Trust me for once. I guided her by the elbow, enjoying the small power shift. After a week of texting and another yoga class together, I'd finally given in to her repeated requests to see the Indianapolis tourists never see. If this is revenge for the fountain, just know I've updated my will, she joked, hand tightening on my arm as I navigated her down a narrow alley. We're here. I removed her blindfold with a flourish. Amelia blinked, taking in the unmarked metal doors set into a brick wall covered with faded advertisements from the 1920s. No sign, no indication it was anything but a service entrance. A door, fascinating tour, Alicia. 5 stars on TripAdvisor. I rolled my eyes and knocked a specific pattern. A small viewport slid open, eyes peered out, then the door swung wide. Ms. Phillips. The doorman nodded, his vintage suit and slicked-back hair part of the aesthetic. James, I replied, ushering Amelia inside before she could comment. The narrow staircase descended into what appeared to be a Prohibition-era speakeasy, preserved in amber. Low lighting from antique fixtures cast a warm glow over small tables, a polished bar, and, the main attraction, a small stage where a jazz quartet played something slinky and seductive. Holy shit, Amelia whispered, eyes wide. Is this place real? The velvet door. Indianapolis's best-kept secret, I said, guiding her to a small table near the stage. Only locals know about it, and even then, only certain locals. A waitress in a 1920s flapper dress appeared. The usual, Alicia? Please, Maria. And whatever my friend wants. Amelia ordered something with gin, still gazing around in wonder. How did you find this place? My grandfather brought me on my 21st birthday. His father used to play saxophone here during actual Prohibition. I gestured toward a faded photograph on the wall. That's him, with the band. You Phillips women have deep roots here, she observed, studying me in the candlelight. Our drinks arrived, an old-fashioned for me, something fizzy for Amelia. We clinked glasses as the music shifted to a slow, haunting number that made conversation both necessary and intimate. Dance with me, Amelia said suddenly, setting down her drink. I don't dance. Everyone dances. Some just need proper motivation. She stood, holding out her hand. Perhaps it was the old-fashioned, or the music, or the way the vintage lights caught the copper in her hair, but I found myself taking her hand, letting her lead me to the small dance floor where 3 other couples swayed. I'll try not to step on your feet, I warned, as her hand settled at my waist. I've survived worse injuries from you, she teased, pulling me slightly closer. We moved tentatively at first, finding rhythm with each other. The saxophone wailed something mournful and beautiful, and I found myself relaxing into her lead. Her hand was warm through the thin material of my dress, her breath soft against my hair. We fit together surprisingly well. Thank you for this, she murmured against my ear. For showing me something real. The sincerity in her voice loosened something in my chest. You're the first person I've brought here since, well, in a long time. Her eyes found mine, searching. Why me? The question hung between us, demanding an honest answer I wasn't sure I was ready to give. Instead, I deflected. You said you wanted to see the real Indianapolis. I think I'm seeing the real Alicia Phillips, she replied softly. The music shifted again, but we kept dancing, closer now. I could smell her perfume, something with notes of sandalwood and vanilla. Her thumb traced small circles on my back, each one sending electricity down my spine. We stayed until the band took their final bow, finishing our drinks in comfortable silence. Outside, the night had turned cold and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. It's almost midnight, I noted, surprised how quickly time had passed. Walk me home? Amelia asked. I'm staying just 10 blocks from here. The streets were quiet as we walked, our shoulders occasionally brushing. She told me about the photographs she'd taken that day, an elderly couple feeding pigeons, children playing in fallen leaves, the way light hit the canal at sunset. You see beauty in ordinary things, I observed. Beauty is everywhere if you're paying attention, she replied, glancing at me. When we reached her hotel, we both paused, that same tension from the canal returning tenfold. She looked up at me, her expression open and questioning. Thank you for tonight, she said softly. You're welcome. My voice came out huskier than intended. She stepped closer, her gaze dropping to my lips. My breath caught as she leaned in, her intention clear. The space between us charged with electricity. Just then, a door opened nearby, and an older man emerged from the building, nodding as he passed. Evening, ladies. The moment fractured. Amelia stepped back, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear with a nervous laugh. I should go up, she said, though she made no move toward the door. You should. I nodded, equally rooted to the spot. Yoga Tuesday? I'll be there. She hesitated, then quickly leaned in and kissed my cheek, her lips warm against my skin. Good night, Alicia. I watched her disappear into the hotel, my cheek tingling where her lips had been, wondering when exactly this woman had begun dismantling all my careful boundaries, and why I was letting her. I was halfway through my morning coffee when my phone buzzed with an incoming email. Subject line, Congratulations from National Geographic Traveler. Curious, I opened it to find it wasn't for me at all. Amelia must have used my phone to check something yesterday and forgotten to log out of her email. I was about to close it when the content caught my eye. They were offering her a featured exhibition spot for her Hidden America series. The catch? She needed to be in New York in 2 weeks to prepare. 2 weeks, not 3. My stomach dropped. I closed the email, suddenly unsure what to do. This wasn't my news to know, let alone react to. I quickly logged out of her account and texted her, Hey, you're still logged into your email on my phone. Might want to fix that. 3 dots appeared immediately. Damn! Thanks for the heads up. Nothing embarrassing came through, I hope. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over the keys. Nothing embarrassing. Congratulations, though. There was a long pause before she replied. You saw. I didn't mean to. I was going to tell you. Just trying to figure out how. Before I could respond, my work phone rang. My most demanding client, Victoria Hargrove, was on the line, her voice sharp with annoyance. Alicia, there's been a problem with the convention center tour scheduled for tomorrow. They've double-booked the space with some tech conference. We need to completely restructure the itinerary for my Japanese business partners. They're landing tonight. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Victoria, I'll handle it. Let me call the convention center and see what we can arrange. This is unacceptable. These investors are crucial to my development project. If this goes poorly, the threat hung unspoken. Victoria's business represented nearly 30% of my company's income. I couldn't afford to lose her. I understand. I'll have a revised itinerary to you by 3 o'clock. After hanging up, I spent the next 4 hours making frantic calls, pulling favors, and completely reworking tomorrow's tour. All the while, Amelia's news lingered in the back of my mind, creating a strange hollow feeling in my chest. At 2:30, I finally sent Victoria the new itinerary, which she approved with minimal gratitude. I slumped back in my chair, exhausted, when a knock sounded at my office door. Amelia stood there, holding a paper bag that smelled tantalizingly of Vietnamese food. Peace offering, she said, stepping inside. Figured you might not have eaten lunch. I blinked in surprise. How did you find my office? You're listed on Google Maps. Plus you mention your landmark location in literally all your promotional materials. She set the bag down and began unpacking containers. I got banh mi. The guy said you order it every Tuesday. You interrogated my regular lunch place? Researched, she corrected with a small smile. That's what I do. I wanted to be annoyed, but the smell of lemongrass and fresh bread was breaking my resolve. Thank you, I said finally, accepting the sandwich. We ate in awkward silence for a minute before she spoke again. About the email? You don't have to explain, I interrupted. It's a huge opportunity. National Geographic is a big deal. It is, she agreed. But that doesn't make the timing any less inconvenient, I supplied, trying to keep my tone light. I was going to say complicated. Our eyes met across my desk, and all the unspoken things between us seemed to fill the small office. We'd been dancing around this for 2 weeks now, this connection neither of us had planned for. When would you leave? I asked, though I already knew. Next Wednesday, earlier than I planned. She set down her sandwich. Alicia, I'm not good at this. At connections, at explaining myself, at... My office phone rang again, Victoria's name flashing on the display. I held up an apologetic finger and answered. The Japanese delegation landed early. They want to start with dinner tonight instead of breakfast tomorrow, Victoria announced without preamble. Tonight? Victoria, I'm not sure I can... Make it happen, Alicia. 8 o'clock, St. Elmo's. We need the private dining room. She hung up before I could respond. I put the phone down with more force than necessary. I'm sorry. I have to deal with this client crisis. Amelia nodded, gathering the remains of our lunch. Tour guide life never stops, huh? Something like that. She hesitated by the door. Alicia, about New York? Really, it's fine. I cut her off, already dialing the restaurant. You should be excited. It's what you came to Indianapolis for, right? Good material for your exhibition. A flash of hurt crossed her face. Right. That's what I came for. After she left, I secured the private dining room, arranged for a welcome gift for each investor, and completely revised my speaking notes for the evening, all while trying not to think about red hair, blue eyes, and a career opportunity that was taking her away from Indianapolis sooner than planned. The dinner was a disaster. Not professionally, on that front, I was flawless. The Japanese investors were charmed by my knowledge of their home cities. The food was excellent, and Victoria seemed pleased with my performance. But inside, I was a mess. My mind kept wandering to Amelia, to her imminent departure, to what might have happened if we'd had those 3 full weeks instead of 2. As I arrived home that night, exhausted and emotionally drained, I found a small package leaning against my apartment door. Inside was a framed photograph of the fountain where we'd first met, beautifully composed with autumn leaves floating on the surface and light creating patterns in the water. A note was attached. Some accidents are worth the wet clothes. Yoga tomorrow, eh? I traced my finger over her handwriting, something tight unwinding in my chest. Whatever this was, this thing between us, it deserved at least these remaining days, regardless of what came after. I texted her, yoga at 10, don't be late. Her reply came instantly, wouldn't dream of it. The rain started that afternoon, one of those autumn storms that rolls in without warning, transforming the city into a blur of gray shapes and reflective surfaces. I'd just finished a tour at the State Museum when the skies opened up. Looks like we're stuck here for a while, I told my small group of tourists. Perfect time to explore the gift shop. As they wandered off to examine overpriced souvenirs, I checked my phone. A text from Amelia, at White River State Park with my camera. This rain is magical for photos. Join me? I glanced out at the downpour. Any reasonable person would decline, I typed. Be there in 10. When I arrived, soaked despite my umbrella, I found Amelia beneath the curved metal sculpture near the park entrance. Her red hair was plastered to her head, camera protected under her raincoat. You came! Her smile was radiant against the gray backdrop. Against my better judgment, I replied, trying to sound annoyed but failing miserably. The rain changes everything, she said, gesturing around us. The reflections, the way light bounces off wet surfaces. Come see. She showed me shots on her camera display, familiar landmarks transformed by rain into dreamy impressionistic versions of themselves. In her photographs, Indianapolis looked mysterious and beautiful in ways I'd never considered. "You see the world differently," I said, suddenly acutely aware of how close we were standing under my small umbrella. "That's my job," she replied, her eyes meeting mine. A gust of wind turned my umbrella inside out, leaving us fully exposed to the deluge. Amelia laughed, tilting her face up to the rain. Sometimes protection is overrated. The sound of her laughter, the sight of raindrops clinging to her eyelashes, something inside me broke loose. I stepped forward, closing the space between us. Her laughter faded as she recognized my intention. "Alicia," she whispered, my name a question in her mouth. I answered by pressing my lips to hers. The kiss was tentative at first, a question being asked and answered in the space between breaths. Then her hand came up to cradle my face, and everything changed. The kiss deepened, became hungry, years of caution falling away beneath the Indianapolis rain. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, she kept her forehead pressed to mine. "Been waiting for that since the goddamn fountain," she murmured. "Took you long enough to make it happen?" I teased. She laughed, stealing another quick kiss. "Me? You're the one who finally made a move." Thunder cracked overhead, making us both jump. "We should find shelter," I said, though I made no move to step away. "My hotel is 3 blocks from here." Our eyes met, the implication clear. I nodded. We ran through the rain like teenagers, hands clasped, splashing through puddles. By the time we reached her hotel lobby, we were laughing and completely drenched. The elevator ride was charged with silent anticipation, her fingers interlaced with mine, thumb tracing circles on my palm. When the doors opened, she led me down the hall, fumbling slightly with the keycard. Once inside, we stood facing each other, suddenly hesitant despite everything that had led to this moment. "We're soaking your carpet," I said inanely. Amelia smiled, tucking a wet strand of hair behind my ear. "I don't care about the carpet." She kissed me again, more confident now. My hands found her waist, pulling her closer as she walked us backward toward the bed. We fell onto it in a tangle of wet clothes and urgent touches. Her mouth traced a path down my neck as my fingers found the hem of her shirt. "Are you sure?" she whispered against my skin. My answer was to pull her shirt over her head, revealing pale skin and simple black lace. I've never been more sure of anything. What followed was a revelation. Every touch, every kiss seemed to unlock something I'd kept carefully contained for years. Amelia was both gentle and demanding, learning my body with photographer's precision. When she moved above me, red hair falling like a curtain around our faces, I felt something fundamental shift inside me. Afterward, we lay tangled in the hotel sheets, rain still pattering against the windows. Her head rested on my chest, my fingers tracing lazy patterns in her hair. "You know," she said sleepily, "I photographed some breathtaking things, but nothing compares to you in that moment." I blushed, unused to such direct admiration. Smooth talker. Just honest. She propped herself up on one elbow to look at me, suddenly serious. "Alicia, about New York?" "Not now," I interrupted, pressing a finger to her lips. "Right now, it's just us, here." She kissed my palm but looked troubled. "We can't just pretend it's not happening." "We're not pretending, we're prioritizing. And right now, I prioritize this." I pulled her back down to me, effectively ending the conversation. Later, much later, I woke in an unfamiliar bed, momentarily disoriented. The room was dark, rain still falling outside. Amelia slept beside me, her breathing deep and even. Reality came rushing back. What we'd done, what it meant, what was coming. Panic rose in my throat. This wasn't me. Impulsive, emotional, involved with someone who was leaving. I carefully extracted myself from her arms and began gathering my clothes, still damp from the rain. As I dressed in the dark, I watched her sleep, memorizing the curve of her shoulder, the spray of freckles across her nose. Then I slipped out, closing the door quietly behind me. In the elevator, I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes. I'd never done anything like this before. The sleeping with someone part, yes, but the running away after? That was new territory, and I wasn't proud of it. But as the elevator descended, so did my certainty that I could handle whatever was developing between us. Amelia was leaving. That was her life, always moving, never staying. And I was rooted here, committed to Indianapolis in ways she could never understand. Better to end it now, before we both got hurt even more. The morning after I fled Amelia's hotel room, I threw myself into work with manic energy. I took every available tour, revised all my materials, even deep-cleaned my office. Anything to avoid checking my phone, which had buzzed with texts and calls I couldn't bring myself to answer. By the third day of my self-imposed isolation, my assistant Jamie cornered me in the break room. "Either you're gunning for Employee of the Month, or you're avoiding something major," she said, blocking my exit. "You've taken 16 tours in 3 days, Alicia. That's insane even for you." "Just being thorough," I replied, attempting to sidestep her. "Your phone's been buzzing nonstop. The same name keeps lighting up the screen." I sighed, shoulders slumping. "It's complicated. Isn't it always?" Jamie's expression softened. "Look, I don't know what's going on, but running yourself into the ground won't fix it." That afternoon, I found myself leading a small group through Crown Hill Cemetery, pointing out famous graves while my mind wandered. As we approached the grave of Hoosier poet James Whitcomb Riley, I recited my usual spiel. Riley once wrote, "The ripest peach is highest on the tree." Some interpret this as a reminder that the most valuable things require the greatest effort to attain, a familiar voice finished. My heart stuttered as I turned to see Amelia standing at the edge of my tour group, camera hanging around her neck. I fumbled through the remainder of the tour, hyper-aware of her presence. When the group dispersed, she approached, her expression guarded. "Stalking me now?" I asked, aiming for lightness but landing somewhere near defensive. Had to resort to extreme measures when someone disappeared and ghosted my texts. Her tone was casual, but her eyes held hurt. "I'm sorry about that." The words felt inadequate. "Are you sorry you left, or sorry you didn't say goodbye?" "Both. Neither." I sighed, looking away. I panicked. Autumn leaves crunched under her boots as she stepped closer. I noticed. We stood among the gravestones, the October wind scattering leaves around us, neither speaking for a long moment. "I'm heading to Chicago tomorrow," she said finally. "Assignment for a magazine, 3 days photographing the lakefront." "Oh." The word felt small in my mouth. "I thought you should know. Since communication doesn't seem to be our strong suit." The barb landed as intended. "Amelia, You don't owe me explanations, Alicia. We're both adults. I just thought what happened between us deserved at least a conversation." She was right, of course. Running had been cowardly. "When will you be back?" "Sunday night. I leave for New York on Wednesday." She adjusted her camera strap, a nervous gesture. "So if you want to pretend nothing happened between us, you only have to avoid me for a few more days." The thought of her leaving, of never seeing her again, hit me with unexpected force. Standing among monuments to the dead, I suddenly understood how ephemeral everything was. Time, connections, possibilities. "I don't want to pretend nothing happened," I admitted quietly. Her eyes softened slightly. "What do you want, Alicia?" It was the question I'd been avoiding since she walked into my tour group 3 weeks ago. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "But I'd like to figure it out before you go." She nodded, took a step back. "I'll text you when I'm back from Chicago." I watched her walk away through the cemetery, her red hair bright against the gray stones, and felt something aching and unresolved settle in my chest. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. Without Amelia in Indianapolis, the city seemed suddenly dull, ordinary. I found myself seeing it through her eyes, looking for the beauty in drain covers, the symmetry in ordinary buildings, the stories and faces passing by. During a Sunday afternoon tour of the art museum, I paused before a photograph of a rural Indiana landscape, golden hour light transforming ordinary cornfields into something ethereal. The photographer captures how light can elevate the mundane into the extraordinary, I told my group. It reminds us to look more closely at the world around us. The words felt like they were meant for myself rather than my tourists. All these years I'd been showing people my city without really seeing it myself. It took Amelia's outsider perspective to make Indianapolis new to me again. That night, as I sat alone in my apartment reviewing tour notes, my phone lit up with a text, "Back from Chicago. Can we talk?" My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart racing. "My place? 30 minutes?" Her response was immediate, "On my way." I frantically tidied my apartment, changed my shirt twice, then laughed at myself for acting like a teenager. When the knock came, I took a deep breath before opening the door. Amelia stood there, looking tired but beautiful, a small smile playing at her lips. "Hi." "Hi," I echoed, stepping back to let her in. "How was Chicago?" "Cold, windy, photographically generous." She glanced around my apartment, taking in the bookshelves, the framed maps, the collection of local art. "Your place suits you." "Is that a compliment?" "Definitely." She set down her bag but remained standing, a certain formality between us. "Alicia, about what happened." "I'm sorry I ran," I interrupted. "It was childish and unfair to you." She nodded, accepting this. "Why did you?" The question deserved honesty. Because it scared me how much I felt. Because you're leaving. Because I don't do this. Connection, vulnerability, whatever this is between us. "And what is this between us?" she asked softly. I met her eyes, something I wasn't looking for. Something I'm not ready to let go of, even knowing you're leaving. She moved closer, hope dawning in her expression. "So where does that leave us? We have 3 days before New York." 3 days is better than nothing, I said, reaching for her hand. I'd rather have that than wonder what might have been. She intertwined her fingers with mine, the simple touch igniting something warm in my chest. "No more running?" "No more running," I promised. "At least not until Wednesday." Those 3 days were a strange bubble of time, intense, beautiful, and shadowed by the ticking clock. We moved through the city in our own private world, stealing moments between my tours and her preparation for New York. Tuesday morning, my last official tour before Amelia's departure, started normally enough. 20 tourists, mostly retirees from Florida, gathered at Monument Circle for my Indianapolis Highlights walk. I was mid-explanation about the limestone composition of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument when I spotted her. Amelia leaned against a nearby building, camera raised, that small smile playing at her lips as she photographed me in my element. My words faltered, mind instantly returning to the night before, her hands in my hair, her whispered confessions against my skin, the way the moonlight had painted shadows across her bare shoulders. "Ms. Phillips? You were saying about the limestone?" I snapped back to the present, cheeks flushing. "Right, the limestone." As I was saying, throughout the tour, Amelia shadowed us, capturing angles of the city I'd never considered, occasionally catching my eye with a private smile that made my professional demeanor slip dangerously. When the tour concluded and my group dispersed, she approached, lowering her camera. "Enjoying the view?" I asked dryly, though I couldn't help smiling. "Absolutely. You're quite compelling when you're being authoritative." She reached up to fix a strand of my hair that had escaped its clip. "Your group seemed to think so too." Professional hazard. "Retirees love a good authority figure," I joked, but my voice caught as her fingers lingered near my cheek. "I have something to show you," she said suddenly, taking my hand. "Come with me?" She led me to her rental car and drove us to Eagle Creek Park on the city's northwest side, neither of us speaking much, just existing in comfortable silence. The park was ablaze with autumn colors, the trees a riot of red and gold against the blue October sky. "This is where you've been hiding all day?" I asked as we walked along the leaf-strewn path. "Something like that." She guided me to a small clearing overlooking the reservoir, where the afternoon sun created diamonds across the water's surface. "I found this spot yesterday while you were working. Seemed like the perfect place to show you." "Show me what?" She pulled out her tablet, opened a folder of photographs. "These." I scrolled through dozens of images, all Indianapolis, all familiar places I'd seen 1,000 times, but transformed through her lens into something magical. Monument Circle at dawn with long shadows stretching across the bricks. The canal with autumn leaves floating on the surface like tiny boats. The cultural trail winding through downtown, blurred figures creating a sense of movement and life. "These are beautiful," I said, genuinely moved. "Keep going," she encouraged softly. Then I came to photographs that took my breath away. Me, leading tours, gesturing animatedly, laughing with tourists. Me at the yoga studio, eyes closed in concentration. Me asleep in tangled sheets, early morning light across my bare shoulder. "Amelia!" I looked up, finding her watching me intently. "These are what I'm showing in New York," she said. "Well, not the personal ones. Those are just for us. But Indianapolis through my eyes. Through your eyes. The city as you helped me see it." I was speechless, touched beyond words that her professional exhibition, her big break, had been influenced by our time together. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to see them before anyone else. I handed back the tablet, our fingers brushing. Thank you. We stood in silence, watching the water. Tomorrow she would leave. The thought sat heavy between us. Come with me, she said suddenly, turning to face me. To New York. For the opening, at least. What? It's next Friday. Just for the weekend. You could see my work displayed, meet some industry people. We could have stolen time in another city. The invitation hung in the air, tempting and terrifying. Leave Indianapolis, even temporarily? I'd never even taken a proper vacation. I have tours scheduled, clients booked months in advance. I can't just... Yes, you can, she interrupted. Jamie could cover your tours. You told me yourself she's ready for more responsibility. My mind raced with possibilities and excuses. My clients expect me specifically. Victoria would never... Alicia. Amelia stepped closer, taking my hands. What are you really afraid of? The question cut through my defenses. What was I afraid of? Leaving my comfort zone? Falling deeper into whatever this was between us? The possibility that a glimpse of a different life might make me want things I'd convinced myself I didn't need? I can't, I said finally, pulling my hands away. This is my life, Amelia. Indianapolis is my home. My business is here. Everything I've built is here. Disappointment flashed in her eyes, quickly masked. It was just a thought. Uncomfortable silence stretched between us. I'd hurt her, even though I hadn't meant to. The knowledge sat like a stone in my chest. I should get you back, she said finally. I still have packing to finish. The drive back to my apartment was quiet, tense in a way we hadn't been before. When she pulled up outside my building, I turned to her. I'll see you tomorrow? Before your flight? She nodded, not quite meeting my eyes. I'll come by in the morning. Flight's at noon. I leaned over to kiss her, but it felt different, reserved, already pulling away. As I watched her car disappear down the street, I wondered if I'd just made a terrible mistake. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced my apartment, replaying our conversation, questioning my decision. Around 2 a.m., I pulled out my laptop and searched for flights to New York the following weekend, just to look, just to see what would happen if I dared to step outside the boundaries I'd so carefully constructed around my life. 6 months passed like a dream. After Amelia left that Wednesday morning, our goodbye at my doorstep brief and oddly formal, I threw myself back into work. Tourist season picked up with spring's arrival, making it easier to fill my days with facts about architecture and history rather than memories of red hair and blue eyes. I'd watched Amelia's exhibition opening online, a live stream from the National Geographic Gallery. She looked stunning in a simple black dress, her hair swept up, explaining her photographs to admiring crowds. I recognized Indianapolis in her images, transformed through her unique vision into something extraordinary. When asked about her inspiration, she mentioned a local guide who showed me the heart of the city, nothing more. We texted occasionally at first, surface-level updates about her travels, my tours. The messages grew less frequent, then stopped altogether by month 3. I told myself it was natural, expected. What we'd had was beautiful but temporary, a connection neither of us had planned for, both trapped in our separate worlds. Then came the email. Subject line, Indianapolis exhibition, request for collaboration. Amelia was bringing her work back to Indianapolis. The gallery wanted a series of special tours during the exhibition's run, guided walks to the locations featured in her photographs. They wanted me specifically, mentioned by name. My finger hovered over the reply button for hours before I finally wrote back, I'd be honored. On a crisp autumn day, almost exactly a year after our first meeting, I walked into the Indianapolis Contemporary Art Museum where Amelia's exhibition occupied the main gallery. The photographs, larger now, more refined than the versions she'd shown me on her tablet, transformed the familiar spaces of my city into revelations. And there, in the center of the back wall, was a photograph I hadn't seen before. Me standing in the fountain where we'd first met, laughing up at the camera, water streaming from my clothes. The title card read simply, Beginning Indianapolis. What do you think? I turned to find Amelia standing behind me, looking exactly as I remembered yet somehow different, more confident perhaps. Her red hair was shorter now, cut in a stylish bob that emphasized her cheekbones. "It's incredible," I said honestly. "All of it. You've made Indianapolis look magical." "It is magical." She stepped closer. "At least, it was for me." We stood awkwardly for a moment, the weight of 6 months' silence between us. "I hear you're running special tours for the exhibition," she said finally. "That's the plan, starting tomorrow." She nodded, glancing around at the gallery filling with patrons for the opening reception. "I should probably go mingle, photographer duties." "Of course." I stepped back, giving her space. As she turned to leave, I blurted out, "Would you like to get coffee afterward, for old time's sake?" She paused, a small smile playing at her lips. "I'd like that." Hours later, we sat across from each other at Calvin Fletcher's, just like that first time after yoga class. The conversation was stilted at first, both of us carefully navigating around the deeper currents beneath the surface. "So you're still based in Indianapolis?" she observed, stirring her coffee. "Still here. Business is good. I've expanded. Hired 2 more guides." I saw. "Your website looks great." I took a breath, deciding to address the elephant in the room. "How long are you in town for?" "The exhibition runs 6 weeks." She met my eyes directly. "But I'm staying longer." "Oh?" She set down her cup. "I bought a place here. A small studio downtown with good light. It's my new home base." The words didn't register at first. "Home base?" "I still travel for assignments. That hasn't changed. But I needed somewhere to come back to. Somewhere that felt like home," I finished for her. "Something like that." She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine hesitantly. "Indianapolis has a strange pull. Or maybe it's just certain people in Indianapolis." My heart hammered against my ribs. "You never said anything." 6 months of silence and then, "I needed to be sure," she interrupted gently. "Sure that I could balance the traveling and the staying. Sure that what I felt wasn't just a vacation romance. Sure that if I came back, it would be for the right reasons." "And are you sure?" Her smile was the same one that had first captivated me a year ago by that fountain. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't." The next morning, I led the first exhibition tour, 20 people following me through Indianapolis to the locations in Amelia's photographs. At each stop, I explained not just the history but the artistic vision, feeling her presence beside me even though she wasn't there. When we reached the fountain, the final stop on the tour, I found her waiting, camera in hand. "And this," I told my group, "is where the photographer and I first met." Though met might be too gentle a word. "I knocked her into that fountain," Amelia added, stepping forward with a grin. "Best mistake I ever made." After the tour dispersed, we stood alone by the water, autumn leaves drifting around us just as they had a year ago. "1 year ago today," she said, checking her watch. "Almost to the hour." "You planned that, didn't you?" "Maybe." She took my hand, her thumb tracing circles on my palm. "I'm all about perfect timing these days." I looked at our joined hands, then back at her face, the face I'd tried so hard to forget yet never could. "So what happens now?" "Now?" She smiled, lifting our hands to kiss my knuckles. "Now we try again, properly this time. No expiration dates, no running away. Just us, finding our way between your roots and my wings." "I like the sound of that," I said, pulling her closer. As her lips met mine beside the fountain where everything began, I realized some accidents aren't accidents at all. They're just beginnings we didn't see coming.